Happy New Year and all that tosh, but it's not actually the New Year yet. It's 29th of December, but I've started thinking of my next project. It's going to be a £120 draw weight self-yew bow for my mate JT to go roving with. Now this is in theory a premium Pacific yew stave, but it's got, you can see there's quite a lot of sort of twist and bend and God knows what going on in it. A lot of deflex and a big knotty area that will be near the grip. So it's not without its challenges. You can also see hints of the central pith running out here and there, which is probably why it's taken that bend. It wasn't that bent when I first got it, but it's been seasoned an extra couple of years and it's shifted. But the question is, where do you lay out a string line? If I rotate it that way slightly, so if I start off that way, it's got deflex. If I rotate it a bit, I can get it away from the sideways bend and sort of straight and flattish across the back. But if I have it flat across the back at one point, then it's angled at another. So it's all a wee bit tricky. But basically it's going to be the sort of thing you can't lay out with a string line and a pencil because it's curved in every possible direction. My guess is the centre won't be in the middle at that end, it will be nearer that side, so I've got to relieve this edge a bit and this edge a bit, but there's a narrow point here which obviously is a limitation. So what I'll do is I'll rough it down a bit by eye based on these various places, that weak point. Leave plenty of meat at the grip where this knot is. Thin out that end. The sapwood might need reducing, probably will. And then sort of get it on the tiller and see if it starts to flex. Yeah, I had a quick go just by eye, pushing it through the bandsaw. I can't remember if I rotated it relative to how it was before. Yeah, it's probably more like that. Don't know. Anyway, it's looking a bit more even. Now I need to attack the thickness a bit. So I'll run a pencil up and down it. Just take off some of this excess thickness here. Sort of matching it up to this. Yeah, that's the way around I had it before because that was that narrow point. Yeah. We'll run the old pencil along there and take some of that off. Yeah, just zip some of that off with a bandsaw. Got rather a lot here as well. Probably take that off from this side. So it can make a difference which side you work on the bandsaw. Because if I worked at that side, I'd think, oh, I could reduce it to here. But then I'd be taking off too much of that heartwood. So I'll take a chunk off like that. And we can see we're relatively thick there. Leave that because we don't know what's happening the other side. It's a bit twisty wisty, wibbly wobbly. Yeah. I'll zip a bit off, but taking it fairly carefully. A bit more roughing out. But what we have here is nice. This is a classic illustration of the difference between working a stave and working a laminated bow. Look, we've got stupidly thick sapwood there, haven't we? Rotate it. Looks perfectly normal that side. So you've got to be very careful of this asymmetry. And also if you look at the, you can't really feel it, I can feel it, but you're trying to look at it, there's this sort of what looks like twist running all the way down the bow. So in theory it was split out of a log, so it should be following the grain, but you can see it here at the grip. Well, there's that big wibbly wobbly thing going on there, which should give a nice bit of character in the handle. But at 120 pound draw weight you don't necessarily want character, you want them solid and reliable, but there's not a lot of this knot left, fortunately. So hopefully we should be alright, and that might make a nice feature to fit in the hand. We'll see. But I love these challenging bits of wood. But it's an illustration. I mean, at 300 quid for the stave, not that I paid for it, it was given to me in exchange for a bow that I made. But you know, unless you're an experienced bowyer, you can buy a supposedly good quality stave and still have a lot of work to do. But that's the challenge, and it's all down to experience and practice, like a lot of things in life. There's a slight concern that it's 78 inches long, which would put the centre there, which then leaves this you know, a little way up into the upper limb. I'm wondering about maybe take an inch off the lower limb just to move that up so that's nearer the grip. But there's no need to be hasty. What I'll do is, now it's vaguely shaped, I'll take a bit off the sapwood, just off the corners of it, just to get a feel for the sapwood, and then we'll have a look at getting it up on the tiller just to have a shufty at it. Bit wide in the middle still. Yeah, so well, we're 40mm wide, which isn't ludicrous for a Warbow, but yeah, little bit of tinkering and then we'll get it up on the tiller. And I've taken off some of the sapwood, basically working away, you know, from one edge and then the other edge, and then taking some off the crown. Trying to reduce the belly a bit, but this area is very dodgy where you've got the pith, and the draw knife really dug in there. In fact, yeah, you can see I can still get my thumbnail under it. Just trying to dig in and run along the grain this way. It's all very swirling, the grain here, so I'll probably have to use a rasp or something on it. I might just put a pencil mark on there to warn me to watch out. But yeah, anywhere where you've got swirly grain or weird areas like this, you've got to watch out. Just trying to reduce the bulk a bit. But I'll just try and show you what I mean about working away at the sapwood. So what I'll do is I'll take off this corner. I'm using my draw knife one-handed, which is a bit silly, but just to show you how I'll work down towards that line, taking off the corner this side. Then I'll flip it over and do similar from this side, and then we can work at the bit in the middle. But you can see with this swirl it's very weird. It gives you an idea of how easy it is to work yew, because I'm doing it one-handed. A bit like carving cheese. So that's a slight exaggeration, but you can see where I've worked that edge and that edge. Now I can take some down off the middle, but you know, I'd normally work much more off that edge. You can see it here, you know, I've come in from that side and that side, and you're gradually approximating, but I'm not worried about extra sapwood in the middle really, especially with this weird swirl and what's going on here. And that's definitely a job for the rasp, sort of rasp that out. It's about getting it reduced enough so that when I do get it on the tiller, I'll be able to see some sign of flexing. Oh, there you can see, look, there you can see where it's been tearing out, where it's been roughed. And that's all associated with these knotty areas. And you see how the grain changes direction here. It comes down, then swoops up, and does all sorts of stuff. And we've got a bit of a knot there, bit of a, don't know how deep that goes, probably not very. Nibble away at it, keep nibbling away, and I'll let you see it when she's ready to go on the tiller. Right, I've thinned the sapwood substantially, but there will be more to come off. And tidied it up, generally trying to make it more like a bow. In some of the areas the wood was trying to split or follow the grain where it's swirly. It's quite a tricky stave, and there's a lot of bulk here where there's a big knot on the other side, but I think this is going to be the upper limb, but I may adjust that later. This is literally the first time on the tiller, and it shows you the shape of the stave with no tension on it. You can see there's quite a lot of deflex there. Now deflex when you're trying to make a warbow isn't a bad thing necessarily, because it makes it a lot easier to get to a low brace and start working it. At the end I may introduce a little bit of reflex in the limbs, I might not. There's some silly rules in some of the societies about the definition of a longbow. You're not allowed to steam in reflex, but if a stave has reflex on its own to start with, that's all right. Well, how's anyone going to know the difference? Anyway, let's not blether, let's just pull it back with no further ado. I'm aiming for 120 pound at 32 inches. Now the staves, it's a bit out of kilter due to all this bulk here. But let's just give it a tentative first heave, see if it shows us anything that we want to see. Well, first thing you see is, yes, it's moving. Moving quite a lot actually, and quite nicely. Now slap a string on it and call it done. See, this is a problem with warbows. By the time you've got it roughed out to anything vaguely flexible, you're almost there. Let's take it to 100. Bit nerve-wracking. There you go, 100. So I've got some quite nice bend here. This left limb's looking quite good. We're looking stiff here, as is to be expected with all that bulk. I didn't see how far we drew it, but I can look at that on the video. Woo. Yes, it's not quite the new year, but we're past the winter solstice, so I think I'm allowed to play bows and arrows. Right, you'll see this knotty area here and all this excess bulk that can be thinned out. So I'll work carefully round here, and you can see the strangeness of the sapwood. We're quite thin that side. But if we turn it round and look square here, you can see, yeah, a lot of weirdness going on. Thick sapwood there, thinner there. See, that's a dilemma. If you keep an even sapwood thickness, you can end up with a sloping back of the bow. So do you make the So do you make the sapwood square across the back, and then you'll have thin sapwood one side and thick the other? Or do you twist the bow, you know, try and take the twist out of the limb, or do you just have a limb that's that sort of cross section? There you go.